If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be unreal. I would like to open today's video with a quiz. I want you to guess which of these headlines is AI generated to sound as dystopian as possible. 1. A man who won a legitimate art competition with an AI generated image is now complaining that people are ripping off his work. 2. An educator quits their teaching job because their students can't stop using ChatGPT, and the students in question are literally PhD candidates? Or 3, and I'm sorry to even say this out loud, someone creates a chatbot based off of someone else's deceased daughter and then puts it online for anyone to interact with? Yeah, the answer is, unfortunately, that was a trick question and everything I just said actually happened. So I have decided to hold a specialty cram session where we look at multiple stories in the same video, but this time they all have a singular overarching theme. The rise of generative AI is just muddying the waters so much that now even our actual headlines of real things that are happening are starting to sound AI generated. And I feel like if I don't say something about it, I'm gonna lose my grip on reality. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of choreographical errors, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's lecture, the timing is quite funny because I actually just did an episode of Cram Session. But the thing is, even though I make like 30 videos a month, I have had so many things I've wanted to talk about, I just can't fit them all in one video. But in today's case, the multiple things I'm talking about are really just the one thing I'm complaining about. What is it about artificial intelligence that causes people to act so abnormal? Besides the stories I've mentioned, we also have NaNoWriMo, the subject of a previous video, coming back with a half-hearted apology for their AI controversy. And then we'll also be taking a look at something that just happened. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta have unveiled their new AI video tools to the world, and really it just makes it seem like everything is going to get even worse even faster. But here's our first story from Gizmodo. Famous AI artist says he's losing millions of dollars from people stealing his work. The guy who used Midjourney to create an award-winning piece of AI art demands copyright protections. I mean, this byline alone tells me we're going to be dealing with a level of cognitive dissonance here that cannot be measured. So I actually remember this guy. I wouldn't say he's famous by any means, but he did start a bit of an online controversy a couple years ago by winning a local art competition using AI. So he submitted his piece in the digital arts/digitally manipulated section of the art competition. And honestly, right off the bat, that's just incredibly annoying. Digital art and even digitally manipulated media does not equal AI generated. This is disrespectful to everybody who actually created their work. Why do you feel the need to enter the space with something you didn't create, I wonder? Say what you will about generating AI art in the first place, but to enter an art competition with it is so ridiculous to me. I've set out to make a statement using Midjourney, the AI tool, in a competitive manner, and wow, I could not be more excited about having won with my favorite piece. So the image in question is just like, okay, I guess he actually has multiple images, question mark? I don't know. Either way, I don't care about this at all because he didn't make it. After many weeks of fine-tuning and curating my generated art, I chose my top 3 and had them printed on canvas. But yeah, he's now back 2 years later, complaining that he is getting disenfranchised by art theft. I can't wait to hear his argument or the basis on which he's drawing this conclusion. I mean, this is the same man who told the New York Times when he won his competition, "This isn't going to stop. Art is dead, dude. It's over. AI won, humans lost." I'm sorry, but someone who genuinely believes art is over and computers have beaten us, you should have absolutely no right to call anything you're creating art, like you don't even believe in it. Now, in an ironic twist, Jason Allen is upset that his work, which was created via a platform that's been accused of ripping off countless copyrighted works, cannot itself be copyrighted and is thus getting ripped off. And so that's referring to the fact that last year, the United States Copyright Office decided that when material is generated by AI, it is not the product of human authorship, and as a result, that material is not protected by copyright. But surprise, surprise, the man who bent the rules of that art competition to their very breaking point now seems to think he should be above the US Copyright Office's ruling as well. Allen has been trying since late 2022 to register his painting as a copyrighted work. And last week, Allen filed an appeal in federal court arguing that the Copyright Office was wrong to deny copyright registration to his work. His primary concern is that he's not making enough money. Welcome to being an artist. I guess he does get it. I say that as somebody who at one point was considering going to art school, going all the way, becoming a concept artist. I do digital illustrations. I love artwork so much. But anytime I did a lick of research, everyone was like, no, please God, artists are treated so poorly in this profession. And if you had told like 18, 19-year-old me that things would somehow get worse, I would not have believed it because I wouldn't have even understood how. But the answer is here, and it's called artificial intelligence. I have experienced price erosion in the sense that there is a perceived lower value of my work, which has impacted my ability to charge industry standard licensing fees. This man is genuinely delusional. There's nothing wrong with creating art for the sole purpose of making money, but the fact that he didn't create this, but is trying to license it as if he did, kind of shows you it is quite literally only about making money. Again, the man thinks art is dead. Like, you're not an artist. This isn't art. Why are we having this conversation? Also, Gizmodo included a slightly higher resolution version of the art, and dear God, this is just meaningless. Like, this doesn't represent form, shape, anything. It's not consistent. What actually is this? You've generated blobs, you know, that were arranged in a way that approximates art. People don't have bodies. There's absolutely no sense of scale whatsoever. And whereas I think a human being, a real mind, could take just blobs and scale and play with it and create something interesting, this is nothing. This may as well be a black image and it would still have the same artistic value as far as I'm concerned. I know I may sound a little harsh in this video, but as a creative, I genuinely could not care less. Alan also claims that people are stealing his work, which is funny since the people behind the AI tools he used to create it have been accused of the same thing. I've been put in a terrible position with no recourse against others who are blatantly and repeatedly stealing my work without... He has to be memeing. He genuinely has to be memeing right now. There have been instances where people outright have ripped off my work, incorporated the entire piece into a new piece. My brother in Christ, what do you think generative AI does? Oh my God. It's not nice. It's not nice to call people stupid. It's not. But you're dumb as a bag of rocks. Like, what? Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just get through the article. So anyway, they talk about how Midjourney is currently being sued because their work was used to create the very algorithm that created his work. But Alan's lawyer recently claimed that Alan had worked hard on his digital illustration. In our case, Jason had an extensive dialogue with the AI tool Midjourney to create his work, and we listed him as the author. Alan claims that after producing an initial image from Midjourney, he also spent time editing it with Photoshop, whatever that means. That could literally be just changing the colors around, changing the saturation. It's very obvious that you did not actually paint or create any portion of this image because, again, it is quite literally just unreadable slop. The refusal of the US Copyright Office to recognize human authorship in AI-assisted creations highlights a critical issue in modern IP law. It is imperative that our legal frameworks adapt to protect the rights of those who harness these technologies for creative expression. Great. No protections for the artist, though, right? Without whose work you would not exist or have any sort of career or relevance. Anyway, enough of that guy, please. On to our second story, featuring NaNoWriMo. So if you want to know why NaNoWriMo is in hot water, fun fact, I actually have an entire video about it, but just in case you haven't seen it, I'll give you the briefest of recaps. The organizers behind the popular writing challenge partnered with an AI writing platform and then decided to allow AI-generated work in their challenge while claiming that everybody who called them out was being classist and ableist. And that's just one of NaNoWriMo's problems. Seriously, I recommend the video. It's a mess. But needless to say, people were understandably livid, but NaNoWriMo was incredibly unapologetic, even as they were literally falling apart because writers were leaving their board of directors, people were stepping back from the challenge, deciding they wanted no part of it. It was just bad. But seeing as their challenge starts next month, they just sent out an email where they seem to be taking a more apologetic approach. To our NaNoWriMo community, there is no way to begin this letter other than to apologize for the harm and confusion we caused last month with our comments about artificial intelligence. We failed to contextualize our reasons for making this statement, we chose poor wording to explain some of our thinking, and we failed to acknowledge the harm done to some writers by bad actors in the generative AI space. So it's like, okay, this is all well and good, but what about your stance? Do you genuinely think AI tools should be allowed in this challenge because classism, ableism, etc.? We don't want to use this space to repeat the content of the full apology we posted in the wake of our original statements, but we do want to raise why this position is critical to the spirit and the future of NaNoWriMo. Okay, great. No, so they are literally still 100% on board with what they said. Yeah, that absurd thing we said that everyone hated, we should have worded it better, but we did basically mean it. So looking back at their full apology that they're referring to, it's honestly not a very good one. They didn't open by saying sorry. They instead gave a reason for why they made the statement. They also made excuses saying taking a position of neutrality was not an abandonment of writers' legitimate concerns about AI. And they were still referring to criticism of AI as selective intolerance. We absolutely believe that AI must be discussed and its ethical use must be advocated for. Bro, this is not an apology. So I feel like there's no point in going through it. Yeah, they say we apologize that our original message was unclear. But again, you can imagine why last month's statement didn't exactly get them back in anyone's good graces. So now it's time for take 2, in which they do open with a sorry, but they still make it clear, now just in very pleasant babying words, that they don't regret anything they said, just the way it came across. They then launch into talking about all these good things they've supposedly done, but it's like all of this is very clearly skirting around the issue. You guys took money from an AI writing software company, and you were probably contractually prevented from admitting anything is wrong with AI writing. Even in this newer statement, nowhere does it actually explain what the problem is. The harm done to some writers by bad actors in the generative AI space doesn't mean anything. What exactly is the problem with your statement? You know what I mean? They're never going to admit it. That's my takeaway. They can't say sorry. They can use the word sorry and they can have the aesthetics of an apology, but that's as close as we're going to get as long as they still have that sponsor. So that raises the question of how did the NaNoWriMo community take it? Their email was posted on the NaNoWriMo subreddit and yeah, no. Fail. Is it just me or did this feel weirdly condescending / blaming the community? How dare you interpret our words in the way we wrote them? There's so many little digs at the community all through this email. Just another email to make it look like they're doing something. I'm sorry, but at this point, NaNoWriMo is literally cooked and I can't believe that AI was the hill they chose to die on. Like, you don't even have to impress me or the viewers or anybody. You really should just be appealing to the members of your community. But those community members do not seem very enthused. They don't want to address the actual problem, so they're just being passive aggressive at everyone who's mad at them instead. Can't lose that AI sponsor, so we can't admit we said some dumb stuff about AI. Your standard, please stop being mad at us. No, we will not change non-apology. LOL, indeed. I don't know what it is with this correlation between AI and playing the victim, but here we are. But unfortunately, this next story involves someone who actually was a victim. This is just seriously messed up. Father horrified by an AI chatbot that mimicked his murdered daughter. And this is coming from Forbes Australia. So the story centers on Drew Crescente, who lost his daughter 18 years ago. And as the byline says, someone made a chatbot on tech startup Character AI's platform using her name and yearbook photo. So Character AI is a website that allows users to create their own chatbots. You can make like your own personal version of ChatGPT that has a personality you give it. And that in and of itself is one thing, but as you can imagine, it gets very weird seeing as Character AI has absolutely no guardrails in place to stop users from creating chatbots of existing people. And when the existing person in question was a teenage victim of murder, like, what is going on? So as the article explains, Jennifer Crescente was murdered by her ex-boyfriend, who was later convicted and is serving time in prison. That year, her father started a nonprofit in her name to prevent teen dating violence and now routinely monitors any piece of media coverage related to her. I completely understand wanting to be in the know of how people use his daughter's story because as the story proves, people get so weird about this. He was appalled when he received a Google alert at 4:30 a.m. on a Wednesday that somebody had created a chatbot using his daughter's yearbook photo and name. A grieving father should not have to find out that his dead daughter is being used to try and make money as a chatbot on some website. It shocks the conscience and it's unacceptable behavior. So at the very least, when he did tell Character AI, hey, this is completely unacceptable, they removed it from their website for quote unquote violating its policies on impersonation. And as they tell Forbes, Character AI is examining whether further action is needed. Here, I can save you guys some time and money. Yes, further action is needed. I'm sorry, but if your tools are advanced enough to allow people to create chatbots out of nothing, you guys have the technology to prevent people from using it in this way. I don't want to hear it. So many proponents of this AI technology try to get us to simultaneously believe that we live in the wild, wild west and AI is just a free-for-all. No company is responsible for the horrible things that are happening with their platform, but simultaneously, this is like life-changing technology and is the most advanced thing we're ever going to see, and it's the future and art is dead. I'm sorry, but I need you to pick one. Founded in 2022, Character AI hosts chatbots of different personalities like Taylor Swift, Nicki Minaj, and Elon Musk. It's 20 million or so monthly active users, largely younger people between 13 and 25, have created 100 million chatbots. So the kids are talking to computers now, and I genuinely do not know how to feel about this. What is it about these stories that really just kind of, I feel like they are legitimately under my skin? Anyway, the Forbes article goes on to talk about the money details of Character AI, as if I care. But it does end with some more words from Jennifer's father. Crente believes that companies like Character AI should be legally responsible to monitor and prevent such instances. It should not be on me to try and police this company that has hundreds of millions of dollars. Could not agree more, could not say it better myself. It seems like many of these companies don't recognize the responsibility they have to not only deal with the negative effects of their use of technology, but to prevent this type of abuse from happening in the first place. What an insanely professional, level-headed response to what is probably one of the most triggering things I can think of. Also, seriously, what is up with this Forbes article of writing all of this and not even giving so much as a link to his nonprofit? I went and found the information myself. There's this Hollywood Reporter article, and so the charity Jennifer Ann's group, it currently runs an annual video game challenge where developers compete for prizes. And so basically, he is incentivizing people to create games about consent, abuse prevention, healthy relationships. It's interesting because this man, through his daughter's name, has probably generated more positivity on the internet than any sort of generative AI could hope to do. I very much understand his frustration seeing her name used for a chatbot when he has worked very hard to make it mean something positive. Besides the video game competition, Jennifer Ann's group has also worked with the National Dating Abuse Helpline, promoting educational materials like 10 warning signs of an abusive relationship, how to create a safety plan. We now give out bookmarks to youth with this information on one side, and we've distributed over 500,000 cards and bookmarks all over the world to young people. So I think we are going to donate despite the lack of a link. So there's 526,000 of us. I'm going to go ahead and round that out to $526. Then I'm going to match you guys as 526. So that's like 1,052. Okay, and PayPal says it went through. As Jennifer Ann's group points out on their website, if you can't donate right now, you can also support the charity when you buy games or software from Humble. I love Humble bundles. It's a way to get like some super cool games while also donating to charity. But regardless, there's that. Hopefully our donation can go to inspiring people to create other things to balance out some of the AI generated absolute garbage that is flooding the internet nowadays. But anyway, I have to move on from that story. So now we've got this next one, which is sad in a completely different way. I quit teaching because of ChatGPT. I'm going with a much more lighthearted one to kind of reel things back in here. But despite this being almost somewhat funny, it's funny in an incredibly pathetic way. I got this article recommended and I didn't read it at first. I just opened it in a new tab because I assumed I already knew what it was going to say. But no, dear God, it's not teachers and kids so much as professor and PhD students. These are grad students that are using ChatGPT so much, this one professor just simply had enough. So this is coming from Victoria Livingstone, who holds a doctorate in Hispanic literature and is currently the managing editor of MLN, a peer-reviewed journal of literary scholarship. So one could imagine that Dr. Livingstone has quite a bit to say about this. This fall is the first in nearly 20 years that I am not returning to the classroom. For most of my career, I taught writing, literature, and language primarily to university students. I quit in large part because of large language models like ChatGPT. So even as I'm reading this to you, I really want you to think, imagine the robot trying to generate anything that has this level of insight, because this article is actually very short, but the author has packed in so much information while still making it completely accessible. Writing, as historian Lynn Hunt has argued, is not the transcription of thoughts already consciously present in the writer's mind. Rather, writing is a process closely tied to thinking. And I think this is a good point. It's exactly like the illustration thing from the first story. Sure, someone who might not draw may not understand what the difference is, but the difference is there and it can be verbalized. Writers are not ChatGPT. It's not just off the dome. There is a lot of thought put into this. In graduate school, I spent months trying to fit pieces of my dissertation together in my mind and eventually found I could solve the puzzle only through writing. Writing is hard work, but most of my students were no longer willing to push through discomfort. So Dr. Livingstone explains that she was teaching academic writing to doctoral students at a technical college, and many of her grad students were computer scientists. enthusiasts. As she says, they recognized LLMs as an unreliable research tool, they acknowledged the environmental impact and ethical problems of the technology, and they knew that the models are trained on existing data and therefore cannot produce novel research. However, that knowledge did not stop my students from relying heavily on generative AI. Several students admitted to drafting their research in note form and asking ChatGPT to write their articles. Now, here's the part where I don't want to really get into a debate about the workload of grad school because I have never gone to grad school. I know I joke about being a professor and all of that. I actually do have a degree, but it's just an undergraduate. Well, it's not just an undergrad degree. I worked real hard for that. But anyways, as a bachelor degree holder, I have no idea what's going on in grad school, and I can understand somebody wanting to speed up their process. But I do feel fairly confident saying using ChatGPT to prompt your way through class is not really helping you learn. I don't think that should be a hot take. But Dr. Livingstone apparently tried really hard to be on board by researching ways to incorporate Gen AI in her lesson plans, designing activities to draw attention to its limitations, and constantly just reminding her students that when push comes to shove, ChatGPT does not result in A-level work. It did not matter. The students still used it. So she explains that the result of ChatGPT was very obvious because most of my students were not developed enough as writers to analyze the subtleties of meaning or evaluate style. And I'm sorry, but this next sentence is the one where I stopped reading and I was like, okay, no, I have to make this a video. It makes my writing look fancy. One PhD student protested when I pointed to weaknesses in AI revised text. How did you get to like the highest height of academia and then still somehow manage to make a statement this painfully dumb? ChatGPT in no way will make your writing look fancy. It might make your work look ostentatious, bombastic, things that are easily mistaken by laymen as good form. But make no mistake, if your goal is PhD level work, ChatGPT will never, ever cut it. She also explains that her students are obsessed with AI-powered paraphrasing tools, but that also completely misses the point of paraphrasing, since paraphrasing well, like drafting original research, is a process of deepening understanding. And again, I find that really true. When I talk about stories, I try to make them very simple. There's no reason to make everything sound crazy and inaccessible, but in order to present something very plainly, I have to understand it really, really well. In my experience, the simpler you want to paraphrase something, the more you actually have to understand what it's saying. So this article isn't just like an old person yelling at a cloud. It's very clearly laying out how these AI tools are making people completely undermine the point of being in class in the first place. In a recent article on art and generative AI, author Ted Chiang put it this way: using ChatGPT to complete assignments is like bringing a forklift into the weight room. You will never improve your cognitive fitness that way. Now, Dr. Livingstone does provide another side to this, which I think is very good information. Many of her students were non-native English speakers. And so while generative AI was effective at correcting their grammar, as she says, the technology often changes vocabulary and alters meaning even when the only prompt is fix the grammar. My students lack the skills to identify and correct subtle shifts in meaning. And so this isn't to say, like, if you have ever typed something and pasted it into ChatGPT, you are genuinely Satan and you could never have had a good reason for doing that. This just seems to be yet another case of AI enthusiasts completely ignoring the downsides for some reason. But the issue is only getting worse because, as she points out, AI-assisted writing is easy to identify but hard to prove. And as a result, I found myself spending many hours grading writing that I knew was generated by AI. Once again, the dystopian vibes are back. We've got educators sitting around grading computers now. And once again, I do not know how to feel about this. I found myself spending more time giving feedback to AI than my students. So I quit. You know what's really funny? For all of AI's hype, I don't think it could ever generate just like a 3-word sentence that is so powerful in the middle of an article. Anyway, she goes on to explain that there could be positives, but basically she's not going to stick around to find them out because with few exceptions, my students were not willing to enter those uncomfortable spaces or remain there long enough to discover the revelatory power of writing. So, yeah. Great article. Absolutely hated every single word of it. Thank you, Dr. Livingstone. I feel like I learned something today. And you know, it's funny because I do have story number 5 of 5. How meta movie gen could usher in a new AI-enabled era for content creators. And as you can see, we've got this AI-generated video of a baby hippo just very shamelessly trying to cash in on Moo Dang's popularity. You will never be Moo Dang, you AI-generated freak. But as I sit here And I think about Mark Zuckerberg and just all of these AI people in the world that they're trying to get us to live in, which we are kind of already living in, as these stories prove. I almost realize there's just no point because these people don't care. They can say what they will about how these tools are being trained or whatever ethical steps they're taking. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot have a good reason for doing this. What possible benevolent reason could there be for allowing things like this to be more easily accessible? Yeah, I think art should be democratized, but this is not art, and this isn't helping anybody create anything. It's not helping them fulfill anything. This is going to confuse. This is going to mislead people. Disinformation is just going to get more and more advanced. We have to stop letting people get away with saying things like, this is for content creators. Meta, this is for deepfakers. You've created the deepfake machine and you are making it easy for people. Why? Why? You know? And we know why, because this is Silicon Valley's latest obsession, and thus that's where the billions are. But yeah, in some ways, I'm almost tempted to be pessimistic about it. Like, I don't have billions of dollars, so I have no way of stopping this. But in other ways, I'm like, no, you know what? Forget it. I am a real person. I feel like that's how I win the whole AI content war. I'm just going to keep being a real person, and I'm going to be very, very grateful for the real people watching. I've got bots in my comments. I've got bots in my views, I'm sure. I didn't put them there. You know, YouTube is overrun with bots. But at the very least, I would like to think I started YouTube because I was a real person and I just wanted other people to see my work. And so, you know, it's still working. I guess all is not completely lost. Plenty of real people to support in any way that you can, despite all of this AI generated nonsense. That's how I feel personally. But that being said, you better believe I'm going to call it out when I see it. But that's my take on the situation. Dave's take on the situation is that AI tools are actually good and they're the future now. Dave is also sponsored by ChatGPT, but he insists that that has nothing to do with his message. And I am of course excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, but I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I'm of course running a 100% completely, totally, all the way, okay, maybe not really, somewhat unaccredited university. Probably. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess, but until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to be real. Be a real person. Be so for real right now.